to NASA. Both of them. Well, good evening, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, and all you ETs out there on the byteways of the internet, and wherever you're at down through time monitoring this show. I'm Gary Legier, the Mars Revealer, known also as the Mad Martian, and I would like to welcome you all to the Martian Revelation that is upon you all again now. And today is August 4th of 2018, and you're listening to this broadcast through www.lnmradionetwork.com, where the shield of LNM is the symbol of truth and also your defense for the war which we all fight against the evil dark mission is, to bring you the truth one show at a time. And LNM Radio Network is also 100% listener supported, so if you're a listener, please help support shows like The Martian Revelation and the many others you would also enjoy listening to through LNM, as it is because of you, the listener, of which makes The Martian Revelation possible to be brought to you all back through time. So please click subscribe on the lnmradionetwork.com website, and please share the link, and please donate to the network to allow it to continue being here for you, especially to bring you the Martian Revelation. And you could also donate to the Martian Revelation to help keep it on the air by going to www.thefacesofmars.com. See, we have no paid clubs, no paid subscriptions or anything like that. This show's completely, as well as lnmradionetwork.com, is completely funded by your listener and donating support. So please scroll all the way down www.thefacesofmars.com and see that you can become a member of the Martian Militia by clicking on the donate button. And the Martian Militia will stomp out the troll, challenge the powers that be, and bring you knowledge and help lead you all to a new fate and a new future. Plus, you will be protected by the shield of the LNM Radio Network, where the shield of LNM again is the standard and the symbol of truth and light, especially as we fight the war against the dark missioners, who are all leading you away from the light and manipulating you all to open your wallets and pocketbooks to only allow them more power to join their little clubs for the dark side, to continue to mislead you all and to steer you all away from the truth that they themselves, that they not wish to face or even admit to. Go ahead, just go ask them, see what happens. Just ask them about UFO diaries and the faces of Mars. See where that gets you. So your listenership and your donation support counts and helps us all to not only fight, but to win against those evil dark missioners, as well as to secure a future which we all could literally make the Martian Revelation our reality by changing our fate. So please donate today and become part of the Martian Militia as a Revelation Roughneck. And just remember also that if you're listening to this Martian Revelation show on www.lnmradionetwork.com, then know that you are the resistance. And I also hope that you will all support the Dr. Gil Levin's Martian Revelation Life Validation Campaign. And you all need to please sign the White House petition, as we need 100,000 signatures in less than 30 days now, and we have a long way to go. But this is only a start of what this issue demands of all of our attention and all our support to help the legacy of a great man who had discovered life on Mars in 1976 aboard the Viking landers, which both landers 4,000 miles apart from each other on Mars conducted the same tests, and both of their findings was replicated at both landing sites, where both tests detected positive signatures for life on Mars. But however, a policy of suppression was underway after NASA ordered Dr. Gil Levin to not tell the American public that his test detected life, but was told to say that his experiments merely detected signs for possible life. In all the years since 1976, there has not been any light detection experiments on board any Mars space mission specifically designed to detect actual life like the Viking landers did. Dr. Gil Levin, for many years, had submitted proposals only to be told outright not to send them in, as they will be immediately rejected. Ain't that something? NASA not like their own discoveries, as it went against their seeking life based on Darwinian evolution. And for other implicating reasons, NASA has never sent any Mars mission with any capability to detect life since 1976. Instead, the policy was to remain seeking signs for possible life when that answer was already given in 1976, that life on Mars was and is still a reality. They wanted to shoo that under the rug and hide that from you. Are you all okay with that? But the treatment of Dr. Gil Levin, who is now 94 years old, people, yes, 94, has still yet to be rectified. And Dr. Gil Levin needs to be validated and vindicated, where his place in human history should have been assured instead of becoming a false history that is taught to us all in schools and in public programming consumption and in mainstream scientific areas. It's disgusting being blackballed by NASA and mainstream science and policy-adhering scientists just to dissuade Dr. Gil Levin from fulfilling his destiny, being the first Mars revealer to detect and announce life on Mars. However, now it is up to us. If we continue to allow this travesty of bias and non-science reasoning and policy control to continue to rule over our lives and over our interests and over our participation in exploring space. It is a right for us all and not one to be controlled over us of what truth is and what fantasy is, based on a NASA political agenda, an ideology that hides and suppresses the truth. So please sign our White House petition in support of Dr. Gil Levin to have his experiments be placed on board the next Mars rover 2020 by NASA. And we will also ask the same for the ESA ExoMars rover, both to carry Dr. Gil Levin's important, most advanced light detection experiments, the controlled labeled release experiments, on board both rovers. After all, this is about science, and as at the moment, both rovers do not detect life, but merely see signs of possible life. I mean, what good is that to us, right? But this is not good for any one of us in the world. Your signature actually helps a 94-year-old man to fulfill his destiny and change our lives forever and get his credibility and his position back. NASA policymakers not only blackballed Dr. Gil Levin, but dictated that we the people should not know and cannot be a say in what gets done. That time is now over, especially if I have something to do with it, and more so you have something to do with it. So please sign the White House petition demanding Congress vote to place the controlled label release experiments on board, as there is no better technology now or since 1976 that is more able and qualified and accepted in science all around the world in public health departments, I may add, to be the main focus for the Mars 2020 rovers, to validate the Viking landers' experiments showing life and proving life is there still now. Even since 1976, that has not changed. But NASA's policy and attitude about finding life needs to be changed and made a priority. So again, please go to www.thefacesofmars.com. Scroll down the page, and under the information for tonight's guest and links, please see and click on the Life on Mars picture, which takes you to the petition information page, plus a few-minute audio clip that helps show you the policy-driven mainstream disrespect for Dr. Gil Levin, as well as to us all, and what we have a right to do and say about this, where they think and say that we do not. Plus, there is the link on that page to the actual White House petition for you all to go and sign it. So now you must act to make a difference upon which the Martian revelation will be our reality, and a different future awaits us if we only decide to make our fate and sign the petition that starts this future for we the people and our place in space, and especially on Mars. Please vote to force NASA's hand to use Dr. Gil Levin's superior controlled label release experiments on the NASA Mars rover 2020. So now let's check out this news from the New York Times on July 30th by Dennis Overby. Now, mind you that this is coming from a mainstream position of policy-controlled uncertainty, okay? And I thought it relevant, though, to read of this to you all. It is titled, Mars is Frigid, Rusty, and Haunted. What does that tell you? It's frigid, cold, rusty. Why? Because there's a lot of metal everywhere. And haunted. Haunted why? Many ghosts of what once was there. What about the subsurface illegals? But anyway, the article continues, we can't stop looking at it. An oasis in the sky inspires the imagination. A series of discoveries also refreshes our yearning for the red planet. There it was, Mars, glowing red on the dashboard of the sky like an astrological warning light next to the full-blood moon Friday of July 27th. Mars was calling brightly out across 35.8 million miles of space, a gulf humans have yearned across for as long as they have known that the lights in the sky are actual places. This week, it is the closest it has been to Earth in 15 years. 15 years ago, when it was closest to Earth by a mere 28 million miles, which is the last time that has been seen, was 60,000 years ago. So that was the real big tripper for the Mars closest approach. But as we'll hear from our guest tonight, tonight, even at this semi-closest approach as it wanes back outward in its orbit, it still continues to cause problems here on Earth, it seems. But that yearning has now been refreshed, if in fact it ever went away, by the discovery of a 12-mile wide lake under the southern ice cap of Mars by the European Space Agency's Mars Express orbiter. But again, remember, they sat on that for even a couple years and months because they weren't sure what it really is. So they came out and said it's a body of water because of Earth satellites that looked down and showed consistency of that's what it may appear to be. But Earth and Mars are two different places. Granted, it may be water, but on the other note of it, like we discussed last week, it's really an anomaly. They have no real idea what it is, which reminded me to bring up William K. Hartman's book, Mars Underground. I suggest you all go and read it to see the puns and the implication of that discovery. Hey, anything's possible, especially when it comes to Mars. Nothing is really as it is, especially whereas mainstream scientists tell us mere primitives what is real or not on Mars. But to continue, Mars is an oasis for interplanetary dreamers. Microbes are known to inhabit similar lakes on Earth. And so who knows? Could little Martian bugs be swimming around down there under a mile of ice that keeps the cosmic rays out and keeps the Martian water liquid? I'm going to say yes. Recent discoveries of a 20, 30,000-year-old worm basically came back to life, hungry and eating after being dormant for so long. And we do know here on Earth as well, in other hard-to-believe areas to where life may be considered actually has been found. So Mars most definitely is no exception. It's the NASA policy control that keeps it ever out of our reach. The article continues, Mars has always been the backyard of our imaginations, the place we might one day live, or from where invaders would come in flying saucers to enslave us and steal our water. Our robots have already crossed that space again and again. It is not crazy in astrobiology circles these days to hold the opinion that the life that now envelops Earth started on Mars, and then some pilgrim microbe was brought here on an errant asteroid. We know that the sky is an endless conveyor belt with cosmic riffraff shuffling debris from planet to planet, even star to star, as personified by Oumuamua, the so-called wandering cigar-shaped comet from outside our solar system that cruised blithely through the planets last winter and basically used us as a slingshot to travel itself somewhere else away from our solar system. In the fullness of time, everything gets everywhere. We could all be Martians then, which could help explain the seemingly endless lore of the red planet, the dream of the exile to return to what might once have been Eden. Elon Musk has said he wants to die there, but he's not ready to go there quite yet. But I will add that I am. So the article continues, I grew up terrified as well as curious about the place after I saw the previews of Invaders from Mars. The film showed a boy my age seeing a flying saucer go under the hillside, after which the townspeople, including his parents, were kidnapped and turned into robots. My parents never let me see the whole movie. Boy, that sounds pretty G-rated compared to today's movies, doesn't it? But it paid homage to a part of a mythology that dated to the beginning of the century, of Mars being the dying home of a dying civilization of super smart beings, little green men, hunkered by canals bringing water from the poles. Those visions sprang from a misunderstanding of the work of the Italian astronomer Giovanni Schiaparelli, who in 1877 thought he saw long, thin lines, which he called canali, channels in Italian, lacing the surface of Mars. Percival Lowell, a socialite and astronomer, took the notion seriously and proceeded to map what he thought was cities and canals on the planet. So this is someone else that, in essence, is basically, we're being told, also saw lines and channels, but just incorporated the idea of canals. And a civilization which was dying and using the melting water throughout these canals to sustain what life remained on the civilizations of Mars. But all that good science fiction melodrama vanished when spacecraft images showed the real planet, cratered and dust blown. Again, of what we got to see of it publicly. But so here are a few hard facts. the article states. Mars is about half the size of Earth, so gravity is weaker there. Only a third of what is on Earth, and so you could jump higher. That is, if you could take a breath. But the Martian atmosphere is mostly carbon dioxide, and there is very little of it anyway. The pressure is less than 1% of air pressure here on Earth. Temperatures on the ground range from 86 degrees Fahrenheit to minus 190. And a day there is 24 hours, 39 minutes, and 35 seconds long, and a year is 687 Earth days. And Mars is also red because it is rusty. Martian dust is full of iron oxide. But what they don't want to tell you is that it's rusty. Why? Because it's metallic. But again, they leave that out from you, in my opinion. But it is, as a travel brochure would say, a land of dramatic contrast with the solar system's biggest volcano, Olympus Mons, which is 15 miles in height, and the longest canyon, Valles Marineris, which is 2,500 miles long and even 4 miles deep, which implicates a lot of possibilities for life and regards to pressure of where it may exist, even an atmosphere and liquid water. But again, I'm not the only one that states that. It's my opinion. I've known and heard of scientists who said the same thing regards to the Valles Marineris and what may be possible there. But as far as we know, it is inhabited mostly by our own robots, like the rovers and the Vikings we have sent there, and the wreckage of other Martian lost landers. Some 45 space missions, not all of which made it, have been launched toward Mars by humans. There are 5 on the docket, including efforts by China and the United Arab Emirates planned for the summer of 2020. So it's not just the NASA Mars rover of 2020. It's not just the ExoMars rover of 2020, but it's also Chinese and United Arab Emirates have plans for the summer of 2020. Tell me there's no space race. But if anybody else has been interested, if there is anything like an alien iPhone or one of those monoliths from 2001: A Space Odyssey sitting on a rock somewhere, we wouldn't necessarily have found it yet. But in 1976, I'm going to say, we have found such a monolith. We have found one in a region called the Cydonia, staring up at it, with its eye following it, watching it across the sky as it looks down and watches them flying above it. So again, this is part of the mainstream policy of suppression and keeping the truth away from you all. Both go hand in hand. All the findings from 1976, Viking orbiters and the landers, has got to be connected, because if it was announced that Dr. Gil Levin's experiments detected life, then they only had to connect it to that weird visage of the face of Cydonia staring up at them that was discovered the same year by the Viking orbiter. One connection just leads to another, and now those are part of the big implications. But the article continues, out of all this exploration, a new story has emerged. Equally haunting, yes, the one of suppression. But anyway, it is of a planet once splashed by oceans and carved by swiftly flowing rivers, a world warmed long ago by an atmosphere. But something happened, and Mars lost its sparkling waters and its air. Now there are only the naked shorelines, empty filaments of tributaries, silent rocks, and occasional wet spots on cliff sides. If there was ever life here, the story goes, it died or went underground. Yes, dust of Mars inside is on its way. That's going to look for the subsurface illegals. I agree. But what's not being talked about is the other signs of intelligent life that may have existed on Mars, and that is by its surface features. But again, they don't go into that. They steer away from that. That policy is taboo, but not to us, because it's in the data they give out, and we the people are finding it. They're just not admitting or answering to it. So the article continues, instead of little green men, we are looking for microbes, which is okay with me, the ad states. I get lonely easily, and maybe microbes will be what passes for cosmic company. And the Vikings, which landed on Mars in 1976, were famously designed to look for life in the Martian soil. And scientists still argue about whether one of the 4 experiments actually got a positive result. Notice they don't tell you the name of the experiment or whose experiment it was. That's the Dr. Gil Levin's controlled labor release experiments. So they themselves even admit that scientists still argue about whether the experiment actually got a positive result. It's because of the NASA policy agenda suppression. And anyway, the article continues, since then, any whiff of evidence for a Martian life past or present has stirred the public and perhaps congressional enthusiasm for the space agency's budget. In 1996, scientists said they had detected the fossil of a microbe and a meteorite from Mars in a news conference that came complete with a statement from President Bill Clinton. But few scientists accepted it because of the NASA policy agenda of suppression. That's why few scientists accepted it, because if they did, their jobs would be at stake. It's only common sense to figure that out. You don't bite the hand that feeds you. But the article continues, in June, the Curiosity rover, however, confirmed that there are small amounts of methane periodically emitted into the atmosphere in Gale Crater, where it spends its time. And that's a lot of bull! Because it's not just small amounts of methane periodically emitted into the atmosphere in Gale Crater. It's all over the planet. It's been detected. And it's not small amounts. But what has been detected is, yes, it has been being replenished, especially seasonally, like on Earth does. And that means life, not geological. But anyway, the article continues, on Earth, a lot of methane comes from biological activity, like cows burping or farting or both. But pure geological processes can also make it, but not in like timely manners like the biological aspects does, including here on Earth. So they're trying to steer you all away from seeing the truth and keeping this as boring and nothing to see here is possible, while nation after nation are all the more racing to it now. Keep your blinders on. That's what they want from you. But the newly discovered underground lake, if it is confirmed by further observations, right, because it's an anomaly. They don't know what the hell it is. They just want to believe that it's water because of where it sits, how it sits, but yet they do not really know what it is. They just know that something is there, and scientifically had to come out and state, hey, it must be water. Think about it. Again, William K. Hartman's book, Mars Underground. But again, if it is confirmed by further observations, it is just the latest in this parade of hopeful signs that we might have neighbors out there somewhere. Neighbors, not microbes, neighbors. Do you give a crap about your neighbor microbes next door to you? No. You care about your neighbors, which is what? Intelligent beings, higher forms of life. Slowly, they're trying to lead you as if you need to be steered by them to the truth. But lately, much excitement about extraterrestrial life has been in the outer solar system, where many of the moons of Jupiter, Saturn, and the other gas giants have been found to be ocean worlds hiding under shells of ice. Some of them, like Jupiter's Europa and Saturn's Enceladus, seem to be squirting salty plumes of water and perhaps microbes out into space. You know, maybe somewhere there's an invisible hand stroking those planets, getting them to spew out their plumes of water and microbes coming into space to breed life somewhere else. I mean, come on, think about it. But NASA is planning a probe to Europa, and many astrobiologists have been pushing for a ride through the sprays of Enceladus, or for a mission to send drones to explore the methane lakes of Titan, Saturn's biggest moon. Nobody really knows what alien life would look like or what it would require. But I think they do. They're looking for forms of Darwinian evolutionary processes. Science, and truth be damned, if it doesn't fit their paradigm of their religious belief of evolution. But as Jill Tarter of the SETI Institute in Mountain View, California, who has spent her whole life looking for ET, likes to say, we only know of one example of life in the universe. That is the mind-bogglingly complex web of DNA-based organisms on Earth. We are looking for number two, she said. We still don't know how or why life started on Earth or how prevalent it is in the universe. It is an article of faith among astronomers and hopeful astrobiologists that given the right conditions, life will find a way. Again, based on Darwinian evolution, despite their own eyes and analytical prowess and experiments. If it doesn't support their Darwinian evolutionary theories, we're all just stuck in the mud, pun intended. But in the next 50 years, we will probably know whether Darwin's test tube produced another result in our own neck of the cosmos or in our own solar system. Missions to Mars have been heading off every 2 years for decades now. Again, they just admitted it. They're looking for Darwinian evolutionary findings. Not findings for life. They're out to prove a theory that is in truth not a fact and only a theory that they want us all to adhere to like some type of religious doctrine. And I say no. But we won't know for sure about Mars until somebody walks and drills on it. I used to think I would never live to see humans even back on the moon, but that was before SpaceX began to do things with rockets, coming back and landing tail first, that I had only seen in old science fiction movies. We might not find monoliths or an errant alien iPhone. We might only find dead microbes or fossil imprints of them. Bull! The orbiting imagery shows something quite different. But anyway, they don't like to talk about that at all. But even that would be exciting to know that nature had tried before. The article continues. But if they are alive, whatever that turns out to mean, then a kind of spiritual and intellectual reckoning will be on us. Yes, the Martian revelation, which is why we're all here now. Depending on how wild or familiar these alien creatures are, we might have to decide whether our allegiance is to DNA-based organisms or something even broader. Let's just start out looking for the things that we now know, that you already covered up. Life. But anyway, the article continues, and we might have to decide whether microbes or entire potential biospheres have rights. If we decide to engage in the ultimate imperialist project, we could try to make Mars habitable for humans by heating the planet to melt the ice caps and release carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas, from them and from the red soil. The result would be a thick atmosphere that would keep things warm and wet, effecting intentional climate change. Well, if no one's home, what the hell do you care? We have to go there anyway. Again, these people like to put their spins on it and their mindset of controls, of policy-driven agendas, to think that we have to accept that term of thinking and logic, where we the people do not have to do that. And the article continues, this was the subject of an interactive exhibit at the American Museum of Natural History 7 years ago, in which visitors could choose to rain bombs on the Martian surface, paint the ice caps black, or plant the world with billowing smokestacks, which I did gleefully. But trying to make Mars habitable for humans would take centuries, if not millenniums, and might not actually work, according to a report published Monday in Nature Astronomy. So what? We could bring our own habitats and build our own habitats on them. We don't need the atmosphere to be terraformed for us to live there. Stop lying! Using data obtained by 20 years of orbiter and rover reconnaissance, Bruce Chacozzi of the University of Colorado Boulder and Christopher Edwards of Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff concluded that there is not enough carbon dioxide presently on the planet to thicken the atmosphere and warm it more than about 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Terraforming Mars, they concluded, will need technologies well beyond our current grasp. Yeah, or ones you just don't wish us to know about. We understand. We have centuries, if not millenniums, to sort this all out, as we must. No, we don't. We have only a minimal of years to figure this out, because the space race is on. Stop trying to continue us at a turtleneck pace speed, because that's the policy that we the people are going to break. So the article continues, everything we know about geology and astronomy tells us that Earth will someday become uninhabitable. Yes, especially with us running around the way we do on it, doing the things we do on it, not caring about anything or anyone else. It certainly will become uninhabitable, without natural events to help it along, I may add. But if the arc of cosmic history does bend back to the red planet, we could one day find ourselves in the metaphorical shoes of a family portrayed in Ray Bradbury's classic, The Martian Chronicles. And they have fled nuclear war on Earth in a stolen rocket and taken up life among the ruins of the old, vanished Martian civilization. Just as what we're going to do when we go up there, like Pence said.
And we will put American boots on the face of Mars.
It starts at that moment for us. But the article continues, but to make up for the disruption, a dad offers to show his son a Martian. So he takes him down to a canal, and they look in the water, and there they see their own reflections. Isn't that interesting? What are they trying to tell us slowly and slightly? That we are from Mars, that we are the Martians, that Mars seeded Earth. And, you know, even in the movie Mission to Mars, that was dispelled out and hinted and clued into us all. But that does not make it a factual reality. Humans keep wanting to push ourselves up above to be the most advanced form of life ever in the universe. Well, what I clearly see on Mars, on its visual features from the orbital imagery, that there's something higher than human behind this. But hey, that's my opinion. But now in another article from worldnewsdailyreport.com titled, Trump's science advisor denies the Apollo moon landings ever happened. Yeah, you heard that right. That segues into the opening of this show, with a little girl asking Buzz Aldrin why we never went back to the moon. Buzz says, well, because we didn't go. We didn't go. So Donald Trump's newly appointed science and technology advisor, Yale University professor David Chalenter, has already attracted a barrage of criticism after making controversial statements this week during an exclusive interview with Science Today. The controversial computer scientist, already known for his strong stance against the science behind global warming, has openly and vehemently criticized the space policy of the Barack Obama administration and its goal to reach Mars in 2030. The Apollo moon landings are the biggest fraud in mankind's history, even worse than all the global warming nonsense, he added. A voyage that never was. This is not the first time the controversial professor has attacked the Apollo moon landings. In his 2012 book, America Light, How Imperial Academia Dismantled Our Culture and Ushered in the Obamacrats, the author voices his concern about the impossibility of space travel outside the Earth's magnetic field. In the modern age, we have never been outside the Earth's magnetic field, with the exception of the alleged 24 human beings who flew lunar flights in the Apollo program during the 4-year period spanning 1968 to 1972. All human space flights have taken place in low Earth orbit or below. Even the International Space Station conducts all its operations in low Earth orbit, he explained in his book. Why is that? That is because orbits higher than low Earth orbit can lead to early failure of electronic components due to the intense radiation and charge accumulation, he wrote. So how could have humans have passed through? In essence, he's saying, a dangerous belt of radiation. The Yale professor also documented in his book how NASA was and still is aware of the impossibility of traveling beyond the Van Allen belt, a highly charged radioactive belt that is part of the planet's magnetic field. The Apollo missions were supposed to be the first event where humans traveled through the Van Allen belts, which was one of the several radiation hazards known by mission planners. But even today, NASA scientists admit they can't get past the Van Allen belts, he claimed in his 2012 book. Yes, and we've also seen videos of such NASA scientists stating the same thing. I've seen it myself, and so has many of the listeners to this show. It does raise an issue.
Orion's journey is just beginning. As the spacecraft and the upper stage begin their first lap around Earth, Mission Control in Houston is monitoring the progress of the flight. Orion's over 100 miles up and going about 17,000 miles per hour. Just as it passes over the Indian Ocean, we lose communication. This is expected. The communications link we have through satellites to Orion is momentarily lost, but Orion continues to receive and process data. Its computers can handle 480 million instructions per second. Imagine you are traveling with Orion as the flight test continues. One orbit completed. Time to go. The upper stage of the rocket fires again. Like the setup for a roller coaster ride, this is the big climb we've been waiting for. We are headed 3,600 miles above Earth, 15 times higher from the planet than the International Space Station. As we get further away from Earth, we'll pass through the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation. Radiation like this could harm the guidance systems, onboard computers, or other electronics on Orion. Naturally, we have to pass through this danger zone twice, once up and once back. But Orion has protection. Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation. Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space. for this flight, it's time to head home.
But if NASA scientists honestly admit in 2012 that they still haven't worked out how to properly shield the spacecraft from the radiation emitted from the Van Allen belts, how the hell did we send human beings into space covered in aluminum foil suits at a particular time when the solar activity was at its peak especially? The answer is simple. It just never happened, he concluded on the matter.
We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space, the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation.
And despite his controversial claims, David Gelernter is a world-renowned and multiple award-winning computer scientist known for his contributions to parallel computation and his early prediction of the rise of the World Wide Web. Time magazine profiled Gelernter as one of the 100 most influential people of the 21st century in 2016, describing him as an arch genius. The New York Times called him a computer science rock star and one of the most brilliant and visionary computer scientists of our time. So that should make you wonder. But we know that we should also consider, like the Dr. Gil Levin's controlled labor release experiments, in fact detecting life on Mars, how easy that was squashed by NASA political agenda policy, how that could also be applied to the moon missions, trying to make us all believe that we went and made it to the moon. So it's not far-fetched that David Gelernter, in my opinion, may be spot on. His words are definitely worth investigating and looking into. So now let's focus on an article from spacenews.com from August 1st. Senators seek to focus on Mars and NASA's exploration plans. Members of the Senate Space Subcommittee said at a recent hearing preparing a new NASA authorization bill that they want NASA to remain focused on human missions to Mars, even as it plans activities in cislunar space and on the moon. At a July 25th hearing by the Senate Space Subcommittee titled Destination Mars, Putting American Boots on a Surface of the Red Planet.
And we will put American boots on the face of Mars.
Key senators made clear that development of a gateway facility in cislunar space or human missions to the surface of the moon should not be a distraction to human Mars exploration, which means what? The Martian revelation beckons and is more important than to be focusing on just the moon and cislunar space missions. But while the moon will provide a great testing ground in preparation for the journey to Mars, we must remain vigilant and ensure that we limit costly delays that could push a crewed Mars mission into 2030s out of reach, said Senator Ted Cruz, Republican of Texas, chairman of the Space Subcommittee, in his opening remarks. Mars is today the focal point of our national space program. You're damn right it is. Especially when, according to Vice President Pence, where he said,
And here from this bridge to space, our nation will return to the moon and we will put American boots on the face of Mars.
There's a reason, but that view had bipartisan support. We need to help NASA lift its gaze past the moon and understand how the work we do in space closer to Earth will serve us in our quest for Mars, said Senator Ed Markey, Democrat of Massachusetts, ranking member of the subcommittee. Both Markey and Senator Bill Nelson, Democrats of Florida, criticized NASA for not yet providing a roadmap document required by a 2017 NASA Authorization Act outlining its plans for eventual human missions to Mars. That report was due to Congress last December. Once again, it's being held up. There are those who not want us to go, let alone know. But the article continues, we don't have this roadmap yet. It's 7 months overdue. But anyway, NASA is moving on major acquisitions like the development of a large lunar lander. What gives, Nelson said. Let's see the program for going to Mars and how all of this fits in. We need to make sure we're making smart choices about the priorities. Indeed, I agree with him. None of the four witnesses at the hearing were from NASA, but they were largely sympathetic to the senators' desire to maintain a focus on Mars. Putting humans on Mars has been my dream as long as I can remember, said David Newman, a professor at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and former NASA deputy administrator. We've been stuck in low Earth orbit for far too long. Again, I agree with him.
We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space, the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation.
But Chris Carberry, chief executive of advocacy group Explore Mars, cited language in that 2017 authorization bill calling for a report to study the feasibility of a 2033 human mission to Mars. If this deadline is to be achieved, we cannot allow ourselves to postpone critical decisions. Otherwise, we will have little hope of seeing American boots on the ground, let alone on the face of Mars, I add, in the 2030s, he said. Turtleneck pace speed. We need to get there on Elon Musk's timetable, the early 2020s. Again, that's the one we the people need to envision, not this turtle pace next speed of the NASA suppressors and political contortionists. That's why you all have to sign that Dr. Gil Levin's Martian Revelation Life Validation Campaign petition. But anyway, asked by Cruz what is needed in a future NASA authorization bill to make a human Mars mission in the 2030s feasible, most focused on stability for the agency. You see, the agency concerns about itself, thinking that it is the leader, that it is the one that are going to be sending the boots when President Trump already signed in the Space Force. It's not going to be a NASA policy in hands for much longer. They are the ones who have led us down the wrong way instead of to the truth way. That's what part of this is about.
We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space, the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation.
They set themselves up for failure, certainly not to be our leaders, and that's my opinion. What are you going to do about it? But one of the most important things is constancy of purpose, said Peggy Whitson, a recently retired NASA astronaut who holds the U.S. record for cumulative time in space. We need to have a vision that lasts more than one administration. You're damn right, lady. And we have to have a budget line that will support those goals and objectives that we are striving to reach. Yes, but not in NASA's hands or not in NASA's control. No, but in the Space Forces and in we the people's hands. It needs to be taken out of NASA hands, and that's the point here that needs to be made, in my opinion. But Tony Bruno, president and chief executive of United Launch Alliance, echoed that with a particular focus on launch. From the standpoint of the launch industry, this is a flat marketplace, he said. It's essential that we have a healthy industrial base. Earlier in the hearing, he said the government should prevent U.S. taxpayer-funded payloads from being sent overseas to be launched on foreign vehicles from foreign launch pads. Exactly. That's because we have un-Americans, and the NASA control policy agenda is that want to sell out our nation, that want to enable our enemy nations around the world to get there first when we are in a space race. NASA is not out for we the people. We the people need to sign that Dr. Gil Levin's Martian Revelation Life Validation Campaign petition to change the tide, to make our fate and make a new history. One without NASA being controlling of the high ground and dictating what is reality for we the people. But anyway, the committee billed the hearing as the first in the series as it prepares a new authorization bill. The second hearing that was scheduled for the first couple days ago will be devoted to NASA science programs, particularly the search for life beyond Earth. All right, this is where I want to read something here, and this is important, because every few years Congress and the administration pass a NASA Authorization Act, which gives the U.S. Space Agency its marching orders for the next few years. Amongst the many pages of the 2017 NASA Authorization Act, the agency's mission encompasses expected items such as continuation of the space station, building of big rockets, identification of launch and reentry service providers for third-party claim, and so on. But in this year's bill, Congress added a momentous phrase to the agency's mission: the search for life's origins, evolution, distribution, and future in the universe. It's a short phrase, but a visionary one, setting the stage for a far-reaching effort that could have as profound an impact on the 21st century as the Apollo program had on the 20th. Well, after what we just went over, I doubt that, but it will definitely have a profound impact on the 21st century, especially regarding the Dr. Gil Levin's Martian Revelation Life Validation Campaign petition, signed to get those controlled label release experiments on the Mars rover 2020, because of what I just read of what that stipulates in the Authorization Act. It demands to have those experiments on board, does it not? I mean, am I reading that wrong? Now, subtitle B, Astronomy and Astrophysics, Section 311, Search for the Origin, Evolution, Distribution, and the Future of Life in the Universe. Policy Section 20102D10 of Title 51 United States Code includes the search for life's origin, evolution, distribution, and future in the universe as an objective of U.S. aeronautical and space activities. You see? So that's just doing the opposite of what they've been doing, which means now they would have to do their jobs and include Dr. Gil Levin's controlled label release experiments on the rover 2020. Does it not? Again, so back. B, in general, NASA shall partner with the private sector and philanthropic organizations to the maximum extent practicable to search for technosignatures, such as radio transmissions, in order to meet the NASA objective to search for life's origin, evolution, distribution, and future in the universe. I guess Seth Shostak has said he would be happy for quite some time to come, so it don't look like anything there is going to change much, but it does regards to Dr. Gil Levin's experiments, and especially for what is now in the policy for finding the search for life's origin, evolution, distribution, and future in the universe, and NASA's objective to do so. So now they're going to have to do what they didn't want to do before. That opens the door. There should be no issue regards to this, but there is. And C, report, not later than 90 days after the date of enactment of this act, the administrator shall submit to the Committee on Science, Space and Technology of the House of Representatives at the Committee of Commerce, Science and Transportation of the Senate a report produced in consultation with industry and academia on all NASA programs, including partnerships with the private sector and philanthropic organizations that contribute to the search for life's origin, evolution, distribution, and future in the universe. That means by also being on this radio show with their scientists and not debasing and degrading real scientists like Dr. Gil Levin or his experiments that they themselves designed and which did prove life on Mars. They didn't like their findings. So now this opens up the door to that as well. Yes, obviously NASA is also corrupt, as the corrupt leaders we had that was funding them and steering them to sell us out to the other nations instead of making America great permanently. So thank God for Trump and the creation of the Space Force, because that is who has to take control, and it'll be we the people that'll be in that Space Force. So it puts it in the hands of we the people. D, authorized funding. Subject of the availability of appropriations, the administrator shall make available at least $10 million for each of fiscal years 2018 and 2019 for the search for technosignatures. That opens the door to myself and other people also to put proposal submissions into acquiring some of those funds. Technically, that's what that means. This is taking all the power out of NASA's empire amongst themselves. Now they have to do their jobs. Hey, according to this, again, am I saying something wrong? And that's from the NASA Aeronautics and Space Administration Authorization Act of 2018. Time to implement. We the people. Are you with me? Sign that petition. www.thefacesofmars.com. Scroll midway down, just under the guest information and links, and click on the Life on Mars image. And then take it from there. The force is in your fingertips. And again, that is why the importance that we need Dr. Gil Levin's controlled labeled release experiments to be added on board to those Mars 2020 rovers, even ESAs, but mainly on NASA's, because that is the mission that we the people paid for, and what we the people demand, the search for life, actually be applicated on board those missions. So with that being said, there's much to chew on here, people. So think about that. And you know the motto on this show, pack 'em and smoke 'em, because you're going to need 'em when we come back and introduce our guest, Mr. Robert Morningstar.
I'll be back.
Don't run. We are your friends.
Well, NASA sure is. They're experienced at doing a lot of things. But welcome back, people. I'm Gary Lachey, the Martian Viola, your host of the Martian Revelation that is upon you all now. And we're here with our special guest, Robert Morningstar. And go to www.thefacesofmars.com and click on his links there. And for his Facebook page, his YouTube channel, his SoundCloud channel, where he does his own show as well, and the UFO Spotlight.wordpress.com, where you'll find a lot of information, and where also, again, looking at that image, Robert, man, you know, it's just beckoning. It's just so there. You know, in your face. Look at, like you said, the rise of it. But to me, I'm seeing geometry. I'm seeing an artistically sculpted surface. Now, these things are what Percival Lowell, these are the so-called canals. They just misinterpreted it. They didn't know that the planet was artistically sculpted. And those winds that are there, by the way, everybody, are not nowhere near powerful enough to carve the features that we see, nor would they do unnatural carvings like intelligent-looking design. Pentagons, weird-shaped block pyramids. Again, thefacesofmars.com. Scroll down more, you'll see what I mean. You'll see these things in places they ought not be. But this is part of the bigger global map of this network, as it was. You know, you've seen pictures of grids of Earth and stuff and ley lines, and where a lot of these pyramids on Earth match up. Well, Mars may have been, you know, we might be seeing on Mars what may have been done on Earth originally. I mean, look at the oceans, or whatever Google's not covering up these days. And there's a whole lot of things there that look like, all right, these surfaces were definitely sculpted. We see that from the LiDAR imagery. Again, Jeffrey Boyd Jr. out there helps push out there in regards to the LiDAR artifacts. You know, the way they're showing and what we see in Machu Picchu and these mountain steps that have been sculpted and covered with things which obviously some cataclysmic events happened pre-Adamite or prehistory. Connected to the Martians or not, I don't know. But what I'm seeing on Mars is so much more intense than what I'm trying to describe is what has been described on Earth. And Robert, I know you definitely know where I'm going there. So to look at this planet, like you said, you can't trust anything NASA really tells you about Mars, regards its atmosphere, even the anomaly they found is water. That's why they suppressed it for a couple years, debating on it, say, well, let's just say it's water, and compare it to say that we use aerial satellites of Earth and it looks consistent. Really, they're trying to apply the Darwinian evolutionary process where Mars is just like Earth and it's not. It's an artistical, sculpted, intelligent wonder beyond comprehension. And this image there shows this. And I'll have to bring it out more. That's all. Process it more. I'll even do some drawings on it and videos so people can see where I'm going. But I'm seeing the maps that Lowell was making here. And look at that Valles Marineris. It looks like a bridge in this image. Maybe illusion, but it looks like a bridge going over the dark region there, just before you go up to the pyramidal triangular shaped, you know, where the middle of Valles Marineris sits. This thing is all explosive. And to be able to see this now, it also brings tides of omens with it as well. Again, facesofmars.com. Check it out. Click on that globe image because that'll bring you to the Mars effect. How Mars's close passage exerts geomagneto-electric effects, inducing electrical forces in the Earth's core. And I think that's the meat of the story that really got me interested in you, Robert.
Thank you.
You were going to Mars, and there's no coincidences. And the timing and the relevance, it's here. So it's an honor to have you on to speak about this, because I certainly can't explain it, but I'm here to learn too, as well as everybody else. And the more importance of why we need to sign that petition, and we'll get into that subject later. But take us to Mars now.
Okay, the point about the Mars effect. This is a term that I coined in 2003. And it's an idea that came to me through, people practice science, but we also have another faculty as human beings that's been suppressed, but it's awake in me. And it's called prescience. It's written pre-science. Science is to know, and prescience is to know before. And the way I describe this is this kind of certainty, a certitude of knowledge that comes upon you when you absorb a tremendous amount of information, or it can be simple amount of information, and all of a sudden another faculty of your mind projects conclusions or projects consequences that are very likely as a result of this information that I had observed. So in July of 2002,
but that don't make it less a reality, correct?
Oh, and of course, the way it works is
the way it works with me. The indoctrination of education.
No, the way it works with me is that this kind of certainty comes upon me. The knowledge is hardwired. I know it, and then I look for the proof.
I got you. I'm following you.
Okay, so what happened in 2003 was that I had this intuitive insight that the approach of Mars, the rapid approach of Mars, when it was coming at us, it was racing at thousands upon thousands of miles an hour at us. And although its magnetic field is...
Robert, insight is now on its way. Going
right.
down.
So the magnetic field...
Notice how that fits. You just said prescience. That was just evidence of it. Because insight is on its way. The mission, Mars insight. There's nothing is coincidence. I just want to bring that up.
Sure. So anyway, my theory is this, that the magnetic fields of Earth and Mars becoming entangled at these periods of its closest approach induces electrical activity in both planets.
Even at that great distance, huh?
Even at that great distance, overlapping magnetic fields or pressing magnetic fields will create oscillations in both magnetic fields, and they will create, as you know, there's a principle called induction. If you move a wire through a magnetic field, electricity will flow through that wire. So, in the case of the Earth,
like ballast,
the core of the Earth is nickel iron core. And so I feel that as Mars makes these races at the Earth...
What would happen if Mars was metallic and using that model? Does that make a difference? Does that make a difference?
There would be even greater. I mean, here's
a lot of gold.
The point. Yes, it's being induced in both planets. This electrical activity is being induced by the planets on each other. And so what did we see? They told us that the atmospheric pressure of Mars is so thin that, well, it's just
better than being on the moon.
Insignificant, right? And yet, in the weeks before Mars arrived here, planetary scientists noted that there was a global planetary dust storm occulting.
Yeah, where's the dust storm in this picture? This was taken.
Right, well, it cleared up. It did clear it up. It cleared up. But I'm saying, and they have no explanation of how those dust storms can arise. And my theory is that electrostatic activity, due to the induction of electricity into this heavily metallic planet, creates electrical forces
that drive. And the storms do as well.
Yes. And so
that's why
here's a coincidence that happened just yesterday.
The rover should be charged, ionize itself, take the particles out of the storms, take advantage for a power supply, maybe with water or raising wings to shutter itself from the dust so they not have to worry about losing contact on a multi-million-dollar mission of we the people.
Well, there's a lot of debate about whether my theory is right or wrong. I just keep piling up with the effect.
It makes sense.
But listen to this, the sandstorm, right? The sandstorm on Mars. Did you see what happened yesterday in Arizona? Arizona, Phoenix, before yesterday, was overwhelmed by a gigantic sandstorm. And I have it. If you go to the article on the Mars effect, it's on your page. If you scroll down to the bottom, I've been collecting all of these Mars effects that are happening all around the world. I was on, by the way, I do have my own program on Sundays at 3 o'clock on Revolution Radio. That's revolution.radio. Really hard to remember. Revolution.radio, tomorrow at 3 o'clock. And I'll be following up on this with my friend Gordon James Gianninoto. But 2 days ago, this unbelievable video, live video, came out with Fox News of this gigantic dust storm overwhelming Arizona. And you know what it looked like? It looked like Mars. And to get an idea of this dust storm, if you saw the movie The Mummy, when the dust storm comes out of the desert and they're trying to fly away from it, that's what this thing looked like in Arizona.
Yeah, but this
Yesterday,
is
29 people
or is
died.
it
29 people
metal?
died in Korea.
It's
29 people died in South Korea of heat prostration.
Uh-huh.
We've got all these forest fires all over. It's not just California. It's all over the planet. And I say, people don't know, or not many people know, I should say, that there are three kinds of lightning. There's cloud-to-cloud lightning, sky-to-ground lightning, and ground-to-sky lightning. More than 50% of the lightning on Earth, which is 50 million strikes a day,
wow, that many,
is ground-to-sky lightning. So I said that this induction...
But Mars is close than before. Have you noticed that regarding the lightning strikes?
Yeah, well, I think that they're sparking the forest fires. I think that the Earth has been turned into a giant capacitor by this interaction of the magnetic fields. Well, it's not just Earth and Mars. It's Earth, Moon, Mars, and Sun.
And bigger objects that might be coming in the solar system.
I believe that this entanglement of electromagnetic fields is inducing electrical potentials in all of the bodies, these celestial bodies. But in the Earth, because of our nickel iron core, it's acting as a great capacitor. And all of a sudden, Mars is leaving, and then now it's discharging. And so I predicted tremendous electrical storms. And the second day, 2 days after I made this announcement about the Mars effect, Europe was stricken by a 6-hour storm where 500,000 hits of lightning were registered in 6 hours.
And that's that picture up above more, the big storm of that. Wow.
Yeah, I listed it. You go down, and as the days go by. Now, the point I'm making is that we have to be ready, because this is not an ephemeral thing. It's a long-lasting event, long-lasting in the terms of 3 to 4 weeks.
So you think it could get worse as Mars wanes out more?
Let me tell you what I predicted on my first prescience of this phenomenon.
Okay.
On July 5th of 2003, I was on a radio show in New Jersey with a radio host named Jonathan P. Casey. And I felt compelled to bring this up. And I said that within 3 weeks of the passage of Mars, we would have superstorms, and storms like we've never seen before. And right on target, right on schedule, we were hit with Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Ophelia, and Hurricane Rita, which I ascribe. Nobody had ever seen a hurricane like Hurricane Katrina. And its behavior was extremely strange. If you remember, it came in from the Atlantic. It wove its way down the coast of Florida. It passed into the Caribbean between Florida and Cuba. And then it went into the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, and it sat there stewing and brewing for days and turning and growing. And I said, my God, this is going to be the greatest hurricane
like a
the world
snake.
has ever seen.
Like a snake, boiling up.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm anticipating similar events in coming weeks. So I advise everyone to just be prepared, to have your mindset ready for any contingency. If you have a car, go to your trunk, put a lot of water on one side of the trunk, and put a lot of food, canned food, it's not perishable, so that you can get away from whatever happens. Now look, today, Yellowstone.
That's why I'm at high ground, man.
Yellowstone cracked. About a week ago, it cracked a 100-foot wide fissure. And now it has erupted today, this very day. So these activities are going on, yes. And again, if you go to my Facebook page and scroll down a little bit, there was a live report from Yellowstone about the severity of evacuations in the area, and a state of emergency has been declared in the Yellowstone area. And the mass media is not covering it.
The figures. They're not covering a lot of things except what they want to cover up.
They're covering up, exactly. You know what I'd like to talk about, and segue into it, you said that you feel that Mars was sculpted, and I agree that Mars was sculpted, but it was sculpted by somebody with atom bombs. I agree with John Brandenburg that Mars suffered a nuclear holocaust, and
Well,
that it was probably the
things
result of an
preceded that.
interplanetary war. I
That would
believe the
right.
interplanetary war scenario with whatever was Marduk or the hard bracelet as the Anunnaki. You know, the Anunnaki called the asteroid belt the hard bracelet.
The hammer bracelet, yes.
Yeah, because they had to navigate through it in order to get to the seventh planet, which is us. We were the seventh planet to them because they were coming in from the outside. So I do believe that there was an interplanetary war between Mars and the planet next between it and Jupiter, and both were devastated. But the legendary planet Marduk, when I studied in England, I studied a lot of.
Well, which really is Nibiru.
I don't think Nibiru blew up. If you believe the Nibiru story, it comes and goes. And
You're talking about what actually made the asteroids.
Yeah, the asteroid belt.
According to Sumerians, the Anunnaki called it Tiamat.
Yeah, Tiamat.
Whatever it was, a watery
something.
The top of that planet is our planet.
Whacked it out and just obliterated it. And so that evidence is there. And I believe that what I saw on Mars is the Solus Locus, the asteroid impact of Solus Locus, and the Hellas Basin. I believe both of those were formed perhaps by asteroid impacts that came to it and hit it when I like calling it Marduk. It was a good sounding name when I read about it.
What, Mars or the exploded planet?
The exploded planet.
All right, that's okay.
So if we use their names,
Marduk helped make that become it himself, according to that story, because it was his time and he was pissed. And he was also, according to Mars, Lamu, okay, he was also there for a long time to host the way station, as it was, to bring the gold to their planet. That Mars is specifically, you know, in those tales, and that's interesting because he was forbidden from there. And ultimately, the war on the Earth between them, gods and men, nuclear bombs going on Earth, off on Earth in the past. Dr. Brandenburg mentions that it went off on Mars in a way that would connect to make a plausible story as Star Wars as it is because of the Xenon 129.
Right. That's what I was going to bring up. And, there's a very interesting thing that, good science can be cross-correlated, and I'd like to speak for a moment about the work of Dr. David McKay with the ALH 84001 meteor, the Mars meteorite that was found in Antarctica. I was brushing up on that, and I came across a very interesting statement about his analysis of the carbonate-rich globules that were found in this meteorite. And he said that most researchers think that the carbonate-rich globules were deposited by liquid water, despite the lack of water-bearing minerals like clays or rust, in the meteor. On the other hand, Harvey and McSween in 1996 reported evidence that the carbonate globules grew at very high temperatures, 650 centigrade to greater than 1,200 degrees Fahrenheit. If the carbonate mineral globules were so hot, it is very unlikely that they had anything to do with life. However, Harvey and McSween's evidence for high temperatures could also be the result of bacterial action. Quote, bacteria are able to do amazing things, sometimes to form minerals that have no business being there, unquote, says Dr. McSween in Aviation Week article. Now, the other part about this is that the temperatures of 1,200 degrees Fahrenheit seem awfully high to me, for it to be kind of passive heat. So I would think that there is a possibility that these high temperatures that are referred to in the formation of these carbonate globules could have been nuclear heat from the purported nuclear war that Dr. Brandenburg
which would have blasted some effects into space and land here on Earth. Yes, that still falls into that potential reality as well. And Dr. J also, I have him on this show. He's also an honored guest and a special friend
he's a good friend.
Relation. And I'm trying to get him on within the next couple of weeks, as a matter of fact, or next few weeks. So, but he's been very busy lately. But it's an incredible time in the story that he tells, because, hey, it's so obvious that's what it really, that's what it really entails. And by the visual things that I find on that surface, on the www.thefaceofmars.com, scroll down and look at that triangular pyramidal oddballish structure there, and you tell me, does that look natural to you, Robert? Does that feature look natural?
No, it doesn't look natural at all. Actually,
I mean, there you go. So when you find things like this all over the surface of Mars, so why is it such a hard connection for people to freak out? It's beyond Brookings at this point.
Right.
A war happened there. Okay, well, we see that potential reality happen in our day now, and so we're acclimated to that. We're beyond it now. We must do like Vice President Pence said. We must put American boots on the face of Mars, and that's what this show is for, and to transform and take it out of the power of the hands of NASA and into the we of the people, to where the Space Force will be a reality and not just a farce.
Right. Well, the Space Force is an intriguing concept, and what I think it is it's not a new thing. It's an old thing, and what President Trump is doing is he's unveiling the Space Force that we have had since probably 1979 or 80.
Right,
and
that's
now
why
it's not.
Let's develop another one.
Interestingly, I was watching NASA. Every once in a while I get an inspiration or an instinct to switch the channel, and I happened to catch an interview with 7 astronauts who are the astronauts that are going to be flying in Orion and the Dragon X, and Boeing has some kind of super shuttle coming out. Folks, they haven't shown it publicly, but I saw the drawing on the walls in the wallpaper this afternoon.
I want to see ships like Musk's plan. That's what we need to build at 1,000.
It's like something Popular Science in 1950. This Boeing spacecraft. It looks like a space shuttle that's been stretched out sideways, laterally, so its profile is a little more shark-like, and stubby wings that run along the whole length of the craft rather than coming out at the end and sticking out. Very interesting looking spacecraft, and really something out of science fiction of the 1950s or 60s in popular science or popular mechanics.
Yeah, now we've actually established one of them. Who the hell would have thought actually would have done? We're actually landing them like they showed in the 50s.
Oh my Lord, that's one of the greatest things I've ever seen. The vertical landing, the vertical tail landings of these rockets by Elon Musk, and several of them at the same time, and then goes out in landing on a platform at sea. My God, you know what? Rocky Jones Space Ranger. When I was a little kid in the 1950s, the first two things was Flash Gordon. Flash Gordon was my first great space hero and model, but the other one was Rocky Jones Space Ranger. And Rocky Jones always took off vertically like a V1, and he always landed. And the effects in Rocky Jones Space Ranger for the 1950s were fantastic. You really believed it, that was Rocky Jones' spaceship coming down, tail first, and making the landing. And it was such an interesting parody of NASA in those days. They're still on YouTube, folks. You can catch up with Rocky Jones Space Ranger. He sparked us all. Him, Flash Gordon. Buster Crabbe played both Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers. And made famous by the famous saying, "No bucks, no Buck Rogers." And so that's the point. No bucks, no Buck Rogers. And so we need donations for the Martian revelation, and I could use your help as well to continue my Mars research, folks. If you want to donate,
look, man. Yeah,
contact me via email, robert.morningstar@gmail.com.
All right, on that note, people, I think it's time to go to another break because I want to get back to some questions. Because Mr. Morningstar brought up some interesting issues. You know, Mars is just waiting. It was at its, what is that called? The apogee or the
Perigee.
perigee. All right, again, I'm not the scientist. I get a lot of this. I'm a visual guy. I deal with imagery and things I'm seeing on
No
Mars. Like
problem.
it's entirely sculpted. But on that note, think about that. Let's come back in 7 minutes and do your thing, pack them and smoke them, because it's still an interesting show. And I'll give out the spook number in case anyone wants to use their ghostly hands and give us a call and maybe provide us with something we've been looking for quite some time. So on that note, we shall be back.
I'll be back.
Don't run. We are your friends.
Yes, indeed. Welcome back, everybody. This is Gary Lucia, your host of Mars Revealer, known also as your Mad Martian. And you're listening to the Martian Revelation that is upon you all again now, more ways than one, and with our guest, Robert Morningstar. And quite interesting, he has a lot of information. And to be honest, you know, he has so much to say. I know I'm trying to get in, you know, word edgewise, and you know what? I've done that to a lot of people myself, especially to the host of this network, to where he's still, despite that, seen the value of me and the evidence of why this is even allowed to be back here, back through time. You know, the channel that's open. You know what? He went through and passed his trials of blood himself and fire. So be worthy of who he is supposed to be. And you all need to do that too. Go to www.thefacesofmars.com and join the Martian Militia. Donate to the Martian Revelation. Help keep it going, because it's you, the listener, that empowers us and that makes our fate to change our future, and because we are at another timeline and it's going somewhere else this time, and I'm here to lead it, believe it or not, and that's why it's here. But yet we'll see the relevance of that in time, shall we not? But I'll just say this: the Space Force is a reality. Everything that we're talking about is a reality. It's not science fiction anymore, it's science fact. We're in a space race, and it's time to open up and wake up about the fact. No more wussy hat wearers, no more dumbed down educational process in our schools, no more Common Core. Start feeding them, start enrolling them, and start training them for the Space Force, because it's their boots and ours. In our lifetime, we'll be able to go. And they're going not with flags and flowers, but with M60s. And that's, you know, listeners to this show can appreciate and see the reality of the coded words and what's happened unfolded. Again, the dam is broken. The river, it's a river now. It's not just trickling. Look, from months from talking about putting boots on the face of Mars, in all seriousness, now as the National Space Council chairman, all right, like President Pence, the months later, Trump saying we'll develop another one, alluding to what Morningstar just connected here, regards that they're just unveiling what they already had, of course. But now they need boots. So now it has to come out. Why? Because there's an importance to put American boots on that face of Mars. And the space race is on. But what's that important to when now, months later, Trump actually signs it. And he says to everyone on TV, not his staff, does anyone here not really wish me to sign this? Because you'll be really upset if you don't want me to sign this. And then he told General Dunford, good luck, now go get it. Go get what? Robert Morningstar, what the hell? You know the other word, we can't say that here.
I know. I don't like to say that word either. You got to use that like the nuke, you know? Anyway, before I go on, I want to tell you that we have a lot of good friends listening around the world. And I'd like to give a shout out to Cindy Ann and Sunray, and to my friend Jaffe Ryder of Pirate Radio Robin Hood, who's listening in Korea, along with Carolyn and other good friends, some in New Orleans.
The Martian Revelations worldwide. And that's what it implicates us all. But the U.S. needs to lead the way.
Yes, the U.S. does have to lead the way. I mean, we got so passive, we surrendered outer space to anybody but us. I mean, what happened with Obama? I mean, the most disengaged non-scientist president I've ever seen. I mean, he just couldn't care less about space program or Mars.
They run the plan to destroy us.
I mean, really, I was writing about the then President Obama and how good it feels to write that term, then president, and not now president. Anyway, I would like to talk about something very unusual. Martians. What are Martians like? And the reason I'm asking that question, and not rhetorically, is that I saw a very interesting article come out today that had something to do with the FBI declassifying an article or document from a very famous scientist in the 1950s that talked about extraterrestrials from other dimensions that come to visit Earth. And there's a very short passage I'd like to read. It talks about the bodies of the visitors and the craft also automatically materialize on entering the vibratory rate of our dense matter. They re-enter the etheric at will, and so simply disappear from our vision without a trace. The region they come from is not the astral plane. This corresponds to the Lakas and Talas. Students of esoteric matters will understand these terms.
Locus and Talos, what is that? Yin and yang?
Those are realms. Those are realms, I believe, of names for other dimensions given by the Tibetans and the Hindus, who are very adept in these affairs. But the reason I bring this up is because he talks about the density, the different density of these visitors' bodies, and how they can travel into another dimension because of the different densities of their bodies.
You're saying naturally, not by the means of a technology that they have advanced acquired, or by the use of both?
Yeah, no, I'm just talking about the nature of their bodies. You know, we have these bodies, and we have to sit in airplanes and cars, and we have material stuff.
L.A. Marsuli calls them demons.
But listen to this. I was looking at the NASA data on Mars, and one of the things that struck me really deeply is that it says that Mars has 30% the density of Earth.
Okay.
Think about that. If Mars has 30% the density of Earth, then everything on Mars has got to feel different. Even rocks. It's not like us. And so I think that Martians are not likely to be like us if they evolved on a planet with 30% our density.
That's why I say what
they
I
would
see.
be more. They would be, and again, this is just hypothetical. This is science fiction or science fact.
Well, no, it could be science fact, because what I see is Mars, again, is the giant sculpture. If I am right, okay, I believe what I'm seeing is higher than human intelligence that may have also done the same thing here on Earth, and that's what's been buried and destroyed by whatever scenario, biblical or otherwise, and unknown, because it's unknown, pre-Adamite, historical. So what that's, you know, I think where the picture is. And why do we have to put boots on the face of Mars? Why there? Why that disclosure that no one got, yet they were all clapping? Who are these Martians? Obviously, they could be encountered. If you could put boots...
Well, the Martians, now let's talk about this. If we're talking...
Can't they just lead to another dimension then in your model?
Yeah, another dimension, but also let's talk about this idea that if there was a Martian civilization that existed until, let's say, 500,000 years ago, they must have, and they were as advanced as we are thinking they were, that they had interplanetary travel, that they could interact with another planet, have a war with another planet, explore the solar system. If they got a jump, a head start,
other planets,
then they could certainly have been on Earth at the same time. And the very Anunnaki that we talk about, coming from a hypothetical Nibiru, could just as easily have been Martians coming from Mars.
That's true also. They stated that they went there also as a way station, the gravity,
That's right.
everything.
So the Anunnaki
water at that time, but it was drying out, they claimed. At least at the time when they were there. And Marduk did have war with Enki and Enlil's children here in Egypt, and that brings all other subjects where nukes were used, as well as, well, I'm believing Ningashita and the other one joined together and then bombed Mars. That is incredible, and that is where Dr. J comes in, and where I believe the U.S. government obviously knows, and they told him, like he said, they told him to publish, but leave the moon alone. What's more important about the moon? Just saying. But go ahead, Dr. Morningstar.
You know what's another interesting thing to me? In the 1950s, when we had all these monsters from outer space and beings from other planets, there seemed to be almost equal number of stories or accounts or encounters with people who were from Mars, and then these other people who came from Venus. And then all of a sudden, in the late 1960s, Venus is off the table. Nobody talks about Venus. Nobody talks about Venusians, even though we have that famous documentary, Stranger in the Pentagon.
And Brookings said you would find alien artifacts on the moon, Mars, and Venus, specifically.
And so I'm really curious about, and I was working on an article for UFO Digest which has been hacked for the last couple of months. It's not the first time, folks. We'll be back. We've been through this before. When I published controversial things that were related to politics or the deep state, whack, we got hacked. Sometimes for 8 days, sometimes for 10 days. This one's been a tough one.
Sign that petition. We the people have to take our nation back. It's not a joke.
Right. So anyway, I was working on an article as where did all the Venusians go? Or where did the Venusians go? Because in the 1950s, everybody was talking to people from Venus, and science fiction. Do you know that I recommend to everyone who's listening, do yourself a favor. You've all heard of C.S. Lewis and the Chronicles of Narnia and all that. Read C.S. Lewis, the Perilandra series. Read Out of the Silent Planet, Perilandra, and That Hideous Strength. And you will see that C.S. Lewis knew what was going on, knew what was coming, and he, like George Orwell, warned the world about what was happening. Now, let me briefly say this. Did
it predict about Mars electrically charging us? I want to jump back to that soon as well.
The first book, Out of the Silent Planet, a man from Earth is contacted by beings from Mars, and he's asked to go to Mars, where the hierarchy, the spiritual hierarchy of the solar system is explained to him. And it is explained to him that humanity is a very special being in the solar system, that God created this solar system basically to be cultivated by humanity. But humanity has enemies, and these enemies are called the Eldils. They're alien beings that despise mankind and try to thwart mankind's development and evolution on every planet where mankind is seated.
Do you think they would have the capability to artistically carve up planets?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. But let me just say this. The book is very important because C.S. Lewis was privy to ancient knowledge. And he knew the ancient lore, the ancient history, what we call mythology was really the history of ancient peoples. And he was able to put this whole thing together. In the second book, Perilandra, the man who in his first book, is sent to Venus to save Venus from the devil. And the devil is a scientist named Dr. Weston. An English scientist who sells his soul to the devil and allows the devil to take his soul and take him over in return for intelligence and power. And when Ransom, the hero, gets to Venus, he finds out that the Eldils are in league with Dr. Weston, and what they're trying to do is prevent the Venusian Adam and Eve from meeting so that there will never be a Venusian human race. And that's where the battle ensues, and it's one of the greatest
bloodlines
books and one of the most beautiful endings, in literature of any book. When Ransom succeeds in beating the devil, Dr. West, and Adam and Eve meet, and they fall in love, and there's a transmogrification of Adam and Eve into these greater celestial beings. It is something that remains with me all my life, and it's a hope and inspiration. Now, in the third book, let me finish it off, That Hideous Strength. It's a much larger book, twice as long as the other two.
Right.
And that he tells of the subversion of the human race by the Illuminati. And it takes place in England, and he warns England that even though they won the war, the Nazis had taken over.
Right. Well, why does this remind me all of John Carter? You've seen that movie, I'm sure. The Therns and everything. I mean, this is like the same thing. Like, what did they tell us? Especially with the interdimensional travel thing. But, enabling us, though, to do it in that movie, obviously, for the character. But everything else fits, don't it?
Yes. You know, another movie that I really did enjoy on an intellectual level, Total Recall. That whole story with Schwarzenegger and the dual character and the implanting of an alter. That was all MK Ultra stuff that they were revealing in that movie.
Oh,
I
wow.
thought it was a very, very interesting film with Arnold Schwarzenegger playing the guy whose brain had been hijacked and assumed an alter, a second character, and then is able to break the mind control. He's able to break the MK Ultra mind control and recover his real, true self and true personality. And I believe that all of us are trying to do that because we are not the people we were supposed to be. We have been
I can
fooled.
relate to a lot of
I
that.
say this to everybody. I am not the man I would have been had John F. Kennedy lived. I would have been a
I
totally
can say
different
that
person.
about someone
Totally
too,
different.
unbelievably.
Everyone who has lived since that time. Our entire history was changed by that event. And the methodology with which is kept alive or living dead. I'm fortunate enough to have broken out of that mind control and admitted it. You know, the hardest thing to admit is that you've been fooled. And when I discovered the doctoring of the Zapruder film, it was the first time in my life that I had a depression. I had 2 weeks. I was just bummed out. Nothing mattered. You know, food didn't taste good. You know, love didn't matter. It was just the world was just
It's hard to swallow for people.
until
But,
I made the decision to go public.
Right. People, I want to give the call out number.
Sure.
People, 202-559-7943. 202-559-7943. We've turned this term on this show, what? The spook line. So or the spook phone, whatever. But call on in if you have a question for Mr. Robert Morningstar, Dr. Robert Morningstar. And before we continue on, I know there's other subjects we got to touch on, but you remember on that image, now that you wanted me to put up that I see on the one which is recent with the clouds, the one next to it.
Right.
Now that I see an eye on, the one next to it, on that left one, you could see the eye. It's a pupil in the middle and has the roundness of the ovalness of an eye going around it. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, there's an even better one. I didn't want to use the one that had the eye because I wanted to really show you the contrast, the difference between those two photos, the 2003 photo and the 2015 photo. I asked the question in the description, what, did Mars suddenly terraform itself in 15 years? No. Those two pictures prove that NASA was lying to the world in 2003 and only now pulling back the veil and showing us the real atmosphere, the clouds, a little weather. They still haven't shown you the real Mars.
I just wish they'd show us the real features and admit to them, because that's part of the bone here too. You know why we have to put American boots on the face of Mars. When I had Dr. Brandenburg on this show, he said he predicted that in 3 years Trump will come on the television and say, hey, we found a dead civilization on Mars, opening the door, which is what we would need for the Space Force anyway. And wasn't that NASA's excuse anyway? Well, if it was ever discovered, when do you think our funding go through the roof? Unless, why would we do that? Because you're covering up. You're on a policy by globalists, like you said, deep staters, who now we're working around it. Now Martian revelation could be our reality. It wouldn't have been under Obama and Hillary next. Our nation, we wouldn't have one. Why? We'd be a globalist nation run by communists and run by Islamists to cut our head off. And that's what they were doing in the nations. Don't deny it. It's what's going on now. And I'm not going to let that happen to my America, of which now we're on a different timeline, because we're here back through time, and we the people, all you have to do is sign that petition. I mean, it's ridiculous how many votes. I'm embarrassed, but I'm not. I'll do it again, because we still have time. And this time it'll be done differently. We have more people now wanting to be involved. So when we expect that we will not get the 100,000 signatures. And Dr. J says hello, my friend. And he says that next week that he wants us to get on in, what you could do to help us, that we're going to call on in a third phase of Moon and get them to pick it up by speaking about it, that they surely pick it up. And that would open the door to where we could potentially get those signatures as well as to help that Mr. Stephen Bassett may be able to help by spreading this as well. Because look, I'm not I'm not prone to this. I'm taking on something that's beyond what I'm even trying to prove among images of what I see on the features of Mars, being an independent Mars researcher since 1998. I mean, I've gotten close and under the wings amongst the top bred in this research. I'm not just a nobody. You know, why? It's because of what I see and what I find, not just because I'm some better than anyone else. It's the fact that they've seen something in me. What? The Martian revelation and what the destiny of my future is, and why we're here with Dr. Robert Morningstar alluding to us, the power of Mars and the grip it has on us, and maybe why. What'd you say?
I said, excuse me, you can call me Professor or Morningstar, but not Dr. Morningstar.
All right, I'm sorry, Professor.
That's all right, that's okay, it's okay. A lot of people do it.
Professor, man.
I wonder why.
Hair out, you look like the guy on Back to the Future. That'll be awesome. But
yeah, my hair's getting there, man. Listen, I want to do a shout out to my friends, and I want to give credit where credit is due. There is a Mars researcher, a friend of mine who lives in Israel, and all he does is Mars research. Fortunately for us, he's on Facebook, and he puts his work on Facebook. His name is Rami Bar Ilan, R-A-M-I space B-A-R space I-L-A-N, Rami Bar Ilan. Rami has found weapons, machines, urns, vases, computer boxes. I mean, this guy has an eye, and he's also very talented in enhancing a photograph, because as I saw, I had to create a word for what NASA does to photographs, and it's called dehancement.
Right.
And disinformation technology.
Yep.
It's really anti-science. How to fool people's perceptions to force them to think the lie that you tell them is true.
Now, exactly. Now, we're in line with this petition now, Professor. That's good. I'm going to wait till our next show. What do you think of the relevance then of the importance that this petition has the potential to do to force those doors open? Look, it's like they're priming themselves anyway. You know what I'm saying? For us now, we the people.
I signed it on the air, and I'm trying to get. I'm also I put it on my page and on Twitter and.
Yeah, but do you believe that it could really have the impact of what I'm thinking that it can? Because I'm excited as hell about it, because it will literally make our future change.
How many signatures have you gotten?
Excuse me?
How many signatures have you gotten? I thought you had 99,000 or 90.
It's embarrassing. And you know what? And that's not on me. I had the balls to do this, but none of you can use the force in your lightning bolt fingers just to put down your email address and your name. Big deal. You know what? Whatever. It doesn't say you have to even be an American to sign it.
Don't take it too hard.
All right, look, this is what we're up against, okay?
But we're still trying. How long have you got before the petition?
The word gets out. There may be another one. But if we don't have there to be another one, remember, President Trump, all he has to do is get the importance of this. We could have the signatures. No, we have to have 150 minimum. So now I'm embarrassed. You see, it's way less than that. But I'll say this. We need 150 signatures before the White House sees it. Now they can see it and say, boom, let's take this. You don't need the signatures. And that's what we're hoping for, because of now his new vision and plan, and Vice President Pence's open of the DOD books of the space situational awareness space catalogs. They recently signed, and going by their charter, which I just read at the beginning of the show, that they have to hear us, and they have to include Dr. Gil Levin's experiments on those rovers according to those charters. But we the people have to be the one to start that petition, this process. So President Trump could say, hey, this is it. This is the ball I needed now. Because we the people are now helping him to make our fate to change on this new timeline we're on now. And the Martian revelation, I'm here back through time, believe it or not. And why you're here now, Professor, is because that's a reality and it's going to happen. But I can't do it alone. It has to be just by you people having the balls not to speak forth if you don't want to call in again on a spook phone, 202-559-7943, 202-559-7943. I mean, what do you think about all this? But it's up to us that now we make the initiative, so we make the Space Force by emboldening our children now and in teaching them now that by this petition and what it does, and there are people talking about it. Dr. Gil Levin is 94 years old. 94 people. Don't you see why I'm pissed off? Never mind what happened to me over the past 12 with some unmentionables named NASA out there. So let's just say this. He has went through with NASA, again, the organization, for what, 40 years, being blackballed, and after they came to him, his experiments proved life. They're good in every health department to detect life or to solve problems or test purity of water and organisms anywhere on Earth. Tested thousands of times. It goes to Mars, does the test twice, everyone, all right? And then both landers, 4,500 miles apart, do the same double test. Now, guess what? Both of them had the same results. And NASA got disgusted at it, and they blackballed Dr. Gil. They told him not to tell us that his experiments and NASA had detected life. No, instead, notice the wording of the policy that he hears to this day. No, tell them that they merely detected signs of possible life. Now, how many millions of dollars has happened over all these years? And Dr. Gill agrees with me. Yes, we've been scammed. It's been a big scam from the beginning, but now it's different. Now there's a reason for boots that need to be placed somewhere. Now it could come out of cuckoo land, and why I'm not mad Martian as meaning crazy anymore. Now it's relevant, and now I shape the future because of why I'm here, and why you're here, and why everyone else is here. Despite the fact I can't afford to do this, despite the fact who I am, and the things I suffer, and where I am, and why I am, and because of where I was put. But at the same time, in a way it trained me. Why? Look where we're at now, and look what I had the balls to, go up to a wall, a brick wall where every president has run up to. What, a Masonic wall of control? But there's a doorway in, and this is the doorway, and we're here now, and I have to try to get you all to sign it. For a 94-year-old guy to go down in history, that is true, not that they're trying to prove and force onto you as Darwinian evolution. And Robert, you speak about all those type of things. Am I speaking nuts here? I mean, come on, let's be honest, because the important thing of this is that it wins. Look, if this petition ultimately, whether now or the next time, doesn't get signed, we miss our window. And
well,
we want
regarding evolution, I want to remind you of what I said on the program, my program when you were on last Sunday. I said that the first trick of science was to convince you that you evolved from a monkey, so that when they treat you like a monkey, you won't complain. Okay?
Well, they're not making a monkey out of me. Look, I was given a test, my hands in the gourd on something shiny. How do you catch
Here's another thing I say. In terms of evolutionary theory and mutations, a lot of people believe today the theory, which is now proven actually with DNA, that dinosaurs evolved into birds, that the birds of today are evolutionary byproducts of dinosaurs. And I say to people, look,
that's what they say.
If you can believe that a dinosaur can evolve into a bird, why can't a human being evolve into an angel? Right?
Or evolve from a lizard.
Or go the other way. Now, listen, let me backtrack a bit, because you asked me before about locus and talus when I was talking about the FBI memo that we've discovered. And I said that it had to do with the Tibetans and the Hindus. And in fact, it does. It comes from Theosophy. And Madame Blavatsky embraced Hinduism and Tibetan Buddhism. And so here's what lokas are. Lokas may be called the principles or energies of a hierarchy, and their corresponding talas are its elements or substantial or material aspects. All 7 lokas, or dimensions, and talas, the energy entities within them, are continuously interblending and interworking, and together form the universe with its various subordinate hierarchies. So let me now jump over, now that you know what Talos and Lacus are, I wanted to jump over here and give you the 9 main points that are made in this FBI memo. And it is this. 1, part of the discs carry crews, others are under remote control. 2, their mission is peaceful. The visitors contemplate settling in this plane. They don't say this planet. They say this plane, interdimensionals. 3, these visitors are human-like, but much larger in size. So they're talking about giants. 4, they are not excarnate Earth people, but come from their own world. 5, they do not come from a planet as we use the word, but from an etheric planet which interpenetrates with our own and is not perceptible to us. 6, the bodies of the visitors and the craft automatically materialize on entering the vibratory state of our dense matter. 7th, the discs possess a type of radiant energy or a ray which will easily disintegrate any attacking ship. They re-enter the etheric at will and so simply disappear from our vision without a trace. The region from the astral plane, but corresponds to the locus or talos. Students of esoteric matters will understand these terms, not but probably can be by radar, if a signal system can be devised for that apparatus. One of the things about Seth Shostak, my friend.
Science isn't just by petitions.
Yeah, I knew I'd get it.
What to put on the Mars mission?
Well, listen, he got millions and millions of dollars for trying to do radio communications, and then my friend, a friend of mine on Facebook wrote, "That's so stupid. Aliens don't use radio; they use telepathy." And that ended it all. I don't know if anybody has been contacted by radar lately, unless they're patients in a cancer ward someplace. Radar is dangerous, man. A lot of the scope dopes. That's a term of endearment in the U.S. Marines and in the Air Force for air traffic controllers.
Scope what?
Scope dopes. Like
Scope
Lee Harvey Oswald. Lee Harvey Oswald was a scope dope for U-2 flights. He would sit at an air traffic control center in Atsugi, Japan, and track the U-2 flights that were sent from Atsugi, Japan, into Russia and China. That's who Lee Oswald really was. He was a very smart man, a very smart cookie. And he just got trapped. Sacrificial victim, sacrificial lamb. Anyway, that's it on this interdimensional stuff. So the other thing is, I read a similar report to this one that was made also to the actually it was made to the U.S. Army in 1945, and then it got to the FBI, and I got the Army records from John Greenwald, and it was a letter from a German sailor who had been on a U-boat that traveled from Germany to Japan and back, and while there he was traveling with very advanced German scientists who explained to him these spiritual weapons that they were developing. And the spiritual weapon was basically a flying saucer. And they claimed that the spirit craft could change vibration and enter into another dimension where it could travel to other places without traveling through the space. And that this was very, very clear, and it was so coherent and so well explained. It was written to General Lucius Clay, who was then the commanding general of Europe. I mean, he was in charge of all of Europe. So this German sailor wrote him a very long letter explaining this technology. Also, this was the wild part. He said that the Germans had escaped with this technology, that they were developing it in Antarctica, and that they were planning overflights of the United States beginning in the Southwest in 1947 and 48. And that's when the Roswell event also happened. So it's a pretty fascinating document. You can get it from John Greenwald's The Black Vault. The Black Vault. It's the U.S. Army Air Force reports from the 1940s and 50s. It's a treasure trove of information.
Well, we got we only have like 5 minutes left together, sir. Is there? Damn, there's I still wanted to get into those questions about what you thought of President Trump's words and you know, the position where we the people can really help make this reality, our new reality, greater than any 1950s film inspired you and myself growing up through the 70s and all that.
Right.
And Star Trek and all that, and that's what I need to see. That's Space Force, you know. But we got to make it times 10. I mean,
Yeah.
do you have the?
Well, that's why he wants boots. Obviously, they're going to expand it. If he's saying we have a Space Force and we're going to put boots, that's a recruiting drive, because they know they have the technology, they have the ships, they have now they need manpower. Now they're going to open it up, right? It's been a big secret thing. You know,
Right.
with the secret pilots speaking in the shadows and, you know, afraid for their lives. But as I said, President Trump is unveiling what we have. And this man is hell-bent for Mars, I'll tell you. I saw him in a press conference, and when he announced the Space Force, and he said, yeah, we're going back to the moon. As far as I'm concerned, we're going to Mars, too. And I want that done, going to the moon. I want that done before my second term.
Exactly. So let's get 150 signatures so the White House even sees this
You
petition.
mean 150,000, don't you?
No, I mean 150 before the White House sees it. We need 100,000 signatures in order to make it go across his desk, Vice President Pence and Congress, to take the issue. That's what that brings then. And that's going to bring in so much more, to which this show, I'm telling you, there's something here, and I'm here for a reason. Nothing is coincidence. You're here for a reason. I hope you'll be on again in the future, Mr. Professor. I'm going to come up with, hey, by the way, what'd you think of the show pick? I mean, I thought it was so fitting for you and our topic and everything, man. It just flowed out of me, like you said. What was that? What was that word? Prescience?
Prescience. P-R-E-S-Science. Pre-science. Pre-science.
Gotcha. So I'm following you. You know I may come off ignorant. I'm not totally. I'm learning.
No. I know you're a very well educated man. You got your facts right. Your thinking is straight. You're a little eccentric, but who isn't? Look at me.
It's got to be, because I'm here just to bring more than a Martian revelation. I'm here to lead this nation.
Hey, can I tell you my chess name?
Hey,
I play a lot of chess. Chess.com. I played 5 games with the world champion. Oh my God, what an experience that was! At 3 o'clock in the morning in July 2016. 3 o'clock that's when I play. So I call it my brain scrub. So I see this Norwegian flag on chess.com, and it's really a high rating. I mean, it's 2,300, 2,400. So I challenged him, and we played 25 moves, and then I asked again, and he accepted. I said, well, this guy's different, you know, because most of them are snots, you know. I was only down there like 1,400, and this guy's 1,000 points higher than me. So then we played again. In the second game, I went 44 moves, and then we played again. I went 56 moves, and then I got tired, and I lost 2 more games at 25 moves or so. But I went 56 moves with this player. The next morning, I get up and I said, you know, that guy was a really nice guy. Most of these guys are just such, as I said, such snots, you know, condescending, and they won't play a second game with you. He played 5 games with me. I want to thank him. And I remembered his name. His name was Magnus Carlsen. And I said, hey, didn't I get a tweet a couple of weeks ago that this Magnus Carlsen was following me on Twitter, you know? So I did remember it. I went back and I type in Magnus Carlsen on Twitter, and I go, oh my God, he's the world champion. And I said to myself, man, this guy gets up awfully early, because 3 o'clock in the morning here was about 9 o'clock in the morning in Paris or Norway. I said, this guy gets up awfully early to play chess. So it turns out it was the world champion, and that he was in a Paris conference, and I guess he was using me as a punching bag for warming up for this tournament that he won. So on chess.com, folks, I am Rob Mars.
Excellent. So, hey, you going to be down for another show in the future?
Sure.
I'd love
to come back sometime.
Excellent. You know, I think you're a cool guest. And, again, Professor, that's right. That's what I'm going to call you from now on. All right, bro? Because, you know, you're teaching me. And, you know, prescience. That's very important. And it's very fitting and relevant to tonight's show. Anything else you want to get out real quick for the next minute?
Yes, if you're in the New York area and you'd like to study Tai Chi with me, I'm teaching Tai Chi Chuan. I teach privately. I teach groups in the park. People need sky, horizon, and ground under their feet. I'm teaching the sword form, which is a very rare event. And I'm doing it in memory of my teacher, Professor Ching Man Ching, whose birthday was last Sunday, the day we did the show. It would have been the 116th anniversary of his birth. And I owe him, I owe him a lot. Yep. So that's it. Robert Morningstar, robertmorningstar@gmail.com.
All right, excellent, Robert. And you know what? We'll be in touch soon. And please, let's try to at least get those 150 signatures. 150. Sure. It's just so embarrassing, but it's not, because someone needed to have the balls to do it, and the eccentricity or the craziness or the mad Martianness that would be expected to do it. Because again, we're on a new timeline, and you're here to help shape it too, to bring the Martian revelation.
May I say, when it comes to balls, the Mad Martian has 4.
Excellent, my friend, and we'll talk soon. And you have a good night. And you know what? How old are you again? Because you look pretty strong. You're pretty healthy.
Yes, I am. I'm going to be 70 in October.
Wow. Now think of this. Dr. Gil Levin is 94. His wit is on top of it all. You know what I'm saying? So
yes,
let's just do this for him. And that's what Dr. J wanted me to tell you too before we hang up. Is that we want the human factor here, the sympathy. That's what it really boils down to too. Sure. The sympathy for this individual who's a marker of history.
I've been trying to get in touch with you. I've been trying to call and get in touch, and I know we're going through tough times, both of us. But I'll be happy to be on the show and with you.
Excellent. All right, you have a good night, then, Rob. And good talking to you.
Good night. Good night.
All right, people. So there you have it, everybody. Robert Morningstar. Check it out. Check out his links. Go to www.thefacesofmars.com. Scroll on down. Click on donate. We'll call that the ghost donate, whatever. But it is needed in order to help secure each week's show. But it is, a show at a time. Again, the truth, a show at a time. Only you, the people, like signing the petition, will help the Martian revelation become a reality. And that's why I'm here. That's why you're here. And why this shouldn't be here. And some are screaming and pulling their hairs out of why I'm here. How can he be there? Well, it just is. It's called prescience. All right, Professor taught us that tonight. So on that note, people, you got to think, and with all this going on and what we went over tonight and over the previous weeks, I just got to ask myself, will the sun rise when it's over? Good night, everybody.